Good evening. It is now 6 p.m., actually 6:01 p.m., and welcome to the Community Development Committee meeting. I'm the chair, Lewis Washington. Today's meeting is being recorded and will be available on the city's website. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We'll start with a roll call. Councilmember Watton here. I'm Councilmember Washington, Councilmember Johnson, City Clerk Dina is here, and City Administrator is here. Mr. Chambliss is here. And do we have Director Artecha on the line?
She's showing online.
Yes.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I'm just having trouble getting to my button.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you for joining us, Director. Okay, so with that, we have everyone here. So now we move to our first item of regular business, which is to approve the agenda. What I would like to do tonight is I do want to add one item to the agenda. And I think it should probably be something that we talk about first before we get to the agenda bills. Would like to go into the affordable housing workforce housing development evaluation team / subcommittee and just get some context on that, on who effectively we want to be a part of this evaluation team or subcommittee. I'll call it a subcommittee from here on out. So is there any discussion on that? Okay, so we'll add that to the agenda. Okay, so with adding that to the agenda, are there any other items that want to be added or any discussion at all? Councilmember Johnson?
Just if the record needs to note it, were you intending for that to be, say, after the minutes and before the agenda bills?
Yeah, thank you. That will be, yes, between the minute approvals and the agenda bills. Correct. Thank you for the clarification. Okay. Record reflects it. At this time, we will allow and provide time for residents to provide public comment. If there's anyone here, I don't see anyone. Going once, going twice. Okay. I'll close the public comment section of our meeting. So approval of minutes. We now move on to our next agenda item, which is approval for the minutes dated January 6th, 2025. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Minutes dated January 6th, 2025 are approved. Okay. So next on the agenda, we will move into our discussion on the affordable / workforce housing development subcommittee. And, the reason for putting together the subcommittee is to be able to, well, I'll back up here. We had 2 responses to our RFQ. And so the thought is we want to talk about putting together a subcommittee or if that work should be just done here on the committee. But the process in which we'll use to score the RFQ submissions. So I'll open it up, and I think first we probably want to hear from City Administrator, Mr. Chambliss. And I don't know, I guess just kind of start us off, Mr. Chambliss, since you have a lot of experience with this, and kind of, what have you seen in other organizations, and how do you decide on who sits on the committee, the subcommittee, that is?
So normally you want to gather a diverse group of individuals to make that call. In this case, since this is kind of a council priority and a council driven item, I'd recommend at least a council person on there, if not 2. I'd obviously recommend the community development director to be involved, probably the public works director to be involved. I don't know if you want to open it up to any group or individuals from the outside of the organization, but that's also an option. We could ask them if they wish to participate, since there's only two submissions, I suggest maybe keeping it kind of in-house and,
Mhm.
and small. And I think we can knock it out in one session.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, City Administrator. Councilmember Johnson, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that I do like the addition of the Parks Public Works Director because of the location, the issues related to water, and other kinds of resources related to that, and services. Making sure that whatever proposal we're looking at looks like something that actually makes sense in ways that only someone with some level of technical expertise in that field would probably be qualified to look at. So I think that Mr. Chambliss's recommendations make sense. That'd be Director Teche, Director Hamlin, and then perhaps one or two council members. Because of his experience with the Affordable Housing Task Force, I think that Rob would make a lot of sense. Excuse me, Councilmember Watton.
Rob,
Make a lot
please.
of sense to sit on that. If I had time, I'd be willing to serve as well myself, and that'd be a small group of 4. As far as other interested parties, there are many. I am curious, especially from Councilmember Watton, if there were any of the groups or individuals from the task force that you thought might be good to tap into as well.
Out of those, I guess one is there's a subset that would be kind of pose a conflict of interest because of their expertise. They're outstanding individuals, but they may have certain biases. I could think of 1 or 2 that might not have a deep interest in, or a conflict of interest, to avoid that, but also a deep knowledge as well in helping to select the right partner going forward. So I think that's probably something that should be vetted with the city administrator first. And then if that's acceptable to the group, to the committee, entrusting the administration to have a little bit of oversight in those folks that could serve in that capacity and have a deep interest in it.
What's, City Administrator, what's the protocol for, having a subcommittee and bringing others that are, kind of outside the mix, if you will, and having them serve in the subcommittee? What typically is the protocol there for those individuals?
Well, it's not going to be a subcommittee. It's going to be a selection committee.
Okay.
And so it's commonly done when you're dealing with a item that requires subject matter experts.
Mhm.
You've already laid out how these are going to be evaluated in the
RFP.
process.
Mhm.
So now it's just a matter of going through the submittals, assigning the points, and interviewing and making a final recommendation for a decision. So there's no conflict or anything there. You've already laid out the process.
Okay.
It's not subjective.
Okay. So what I'm hearing so far is Councilmember Watton is a definite on this selection team. We'll call it a selection team. That note for myself.
With Councilmember Johnson as an alternate or
Would you
second.
want to actually be on the selection team? Because I mean, we can have up to 3 council members on the team effectively.
Good. I would, assuming that we could find a time that works well for everyone else, but with my work schedule, I know that makes me kind of a limiting factor. It would have to be in the evening, probably not on an evening when we have council business.
Right, yeah. And then the other Mondays, we have committee business. And
Right.
so I do want to kind of take a step back, and it sounds like are all on the same page, but it was kind of floated out. The idea was floated out. Is this something that we just kind of hash out during committee? Or it sounds like we really are committed to a selection team would kind of be the best way to handle this.
I think it needs to be separate from the public meeting and that a recommendation comes forward. Just because we have limited time here anyway.
I absolutely agree with that, Councilmember Wadden. And I mean, there are other pressing things that we have here as well. So, you know, let's kind of two birds with one stone, right? So I agree with you there.
Okay.
Sorry, Councilmember Johnson.
Then what I could do perhaps to make things go a little more smoothly would be to sit as an alternate.
Okay.
And if the meeting works out at a time when I can be there, great. Or if Councilmember Watton, for whatever reason, can't fill that role, then I could step in as needed. Does that sound favorable?
I believe that's a good approach.
Yeah. So from the council perspective, Councilmember Wadden will be the primary. Councilmember Johnson will be the alternate. Okay.
Sounds good to me.
And then with City Administrator Chambliss, Director Hamlin, and Director Artecha.
Correct?
Okay.
And then,
They're, I'm sorry, go ahead, City Administrator.
Councilperson Watton's gonna send over some names for us to contact.
To that, yeah.
We can round out the group.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Sounds good. Okay. Any other questions on the affordable / workforce housing development selection team?
City attorney's raising her hand.
Okay. Online?
Yep.
Okay.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Hi. Thank you. And thanks for your flexibility in allowing me to be remotely due to the snow potential. I just, for the selection committee, may I be so bold as to recommend that your city attorney be on that committee?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, yeah, I don't think your name was mentioned, but absolutely.
Okay,
Please, thank you so much.
okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for raising your hand. We really appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here and help.
Sounds good. Okay. Well, sounds good. So, did you have a question, Councilmember Johnson? Okay, so next on the agenda is Agenda Bill 25-024, termination of Snoqualmie Ridge Water System Developer Extension Agreement. And at this time, I'm going to turn over this line item to Director Artecha.
Actually, City Attorney Burke.
Oh, is it City Attorney? Okay, I'll turn it over to the City Attorney.
All right, thank you, sir. Good evening, Chair and Council members. So to give a little bit of background, this item goes back to the 1990s, which is longer ago than I think anyone wants to admit. So in 1997, the city entered into the Snoqualmie Ridge Water System Developer Extension Agreement. This agreement required that basically when the ridge was developed, that with that, the water system and wastewater treatment facility that the city utilizes today had to be built as well. In 1998, the city received a bill of sale and warranty of construction for the water improvements that were constructed. There was an attachment to that listed some elements that still needed to be completed. It appears all of those items have been completed or are essentially satisfied. And in 1998, Council passed Resolution 485, accepting the conveyance of the Snoqualmie Ridge Water System. Fast forward to today in 2025, this contract that requires the building of this or construction of this water system is still recorded on the title of the property associated with this development. And so because that's been completed, there was a desire to basically clear the title and terminate this developer extension agreement, reviewing the historical records and discussing with staff at Public Works, the wastewater treatment facility, and community development. It appears that all the obligations were met or appear to be met. I think this is really just a housekeeping item to clear up title, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, thank you so much, City Attorney Burke. Am I saying your last name? correct?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, was this for just one property, or is this covering the entire Snoqualmie Ridge? I just wanted to make sure I understood. Is this just clearing the one title for the one property, or would this cover all properties throughout the ridge?
It covers, and let me try to pull this up. It's the property parcel numbers that are on the title in the packet.
So it's specific.
It is for those parcel numbers. However, because this was constructed, I don't know if the obligations have been met. So really at this point, I don't think there's anything that the city could really enforce under this agreement because the water system was constructed and it was all conveyed to the city. Does that help?
Councilmember Johnson. Sorry.
Yes, it does. I guess the kind of situation that I would wonder about is a situation that I'm familiar with. This happened in a couple of places where there were some punch list items that for whatever reason just lapsed beyond when they were supposed to, where there were some irrigation systems that were left in place that developers were supposed to come and clear, but either never did or it took a very long time for that to occur. And I do not know if all of those have been satisfied. I don't even know if those are relevant to this, but yeah. Basically, just it's part of the water related infrastructure, utility infrastructure. So I wanted to ask if those kinds of things would be relevant to this or not.
So this was dealing more with wells and the construction of the wastewater treatment facility.
Okay.
No
Okay.
concerns.
Yeah, I don't have any concern. Sorry, City Administrator Chambliss.
And that would have been the 1998 wastewater treatment facility that has been rebuilt twice now since then.
Yeah, I saw that WWTP facilities 1998.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. I don't think there are any other questions here on the floor. Okay. Thank you very much, City Attorney Burke. And we'll go to the next item.
And I'm sorry, just to clarify, is that okay to go to consent agenda for the next council meeting?
I'm okay with it going to consent. I put it out to my colleagues here. So
Don't have any objection.
I'm okay with it on consent, I think, or Councilmember Johnson has a.
This wouldn't require an ordinance, it's just more like a resolution.
Yes, this is authorizing the mayor to sign the termination agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no financial impacts.
All right. Perfect.
Sounds good. So we'll move it forward to, will this go to our next council meeting? Okay.
Yes.
Consent agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, City Attorney Burke. Okay, and you're still up with us. I think you have the next one, Agenda Bill 25-026 is yours as well.
Yes, thank you. So the goal of this ordinance is to increase the city's ability to recoup costs associated with code enforcement and nuisance abatement, so that to the extent possible, the costs of those actions do not fall on citizens and taxpayers. When the city successfully pursues responsible parties to remedy issues that impact health, safety, welfare to the general public, the intent is that the city's costs should be borne by the person responsible for the code violation or public nuisance and not the taxpayers at large. It can be very expensive to pursue a code enforcement action. It can involve staff time, attorney time, outside consultant time. And so the intent of this is for the city to be able to recoup those costs. Additionally, the Snoqualmie Municipal Code currently provides inconsistent routes for appealing nuisance abatement and code enforcement cases. The code currently requires appeals of nuisance abatement matters and sewer system violations to be heard by the city council, whereas appeals of other types of code violations go to the hearing examiner, even if both matters arise out of a similar or related factual circumstance. This split of decision-making authority creates the likelihood of piecemeal, inconsistent, unduly burdensome, and expensive adjudication. Empowering the hearing examiner to hear all such appeals would also remove the city council from direct involvement in quasi-judicial appeal processes, which is often considered a best practice to avoid the appearance of politicized code enforcement and appeal decisions. This also enables city council to hear public comment on code enforcement matters and talk to concerned citizens and community members about their concerns of code enforcement matters. Otherwise, such communications would be considered an ex parte communication. Further, some code enforcement provisions in the code are currently silent or ambiguous as to the applicable enforcement mechanism, monetary penalties, and timelines for issuing code violations and pursuing appeals. And there's just a need to clarify to ensure members of the public are well informed of their rights and obligations. So essentially, this is a code cleanup to ensure that the city is able to recover costs and also clarify what goes in front of the hearing examiner. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yeah, I know that I just saw there was a section about zoning that made me think about it. I know that some ordinances have to go through the planning commission. Was this one that has to do that?
It should not, because this is just dealing with recoupment of costs and what goes to the hearing examiner versus council.
Hello, City Attorney Burke, Lewis, Washington here. I just have a quick question and just kind of some background. So if we're essentially cleaning up this code that, we're wanting the hearing examiner to hear these appeals, whereas, instead of these appeals coming before the city council, is there a downside to that?
Personally, I mean, I don't see a downside. I know some city councils, it's a policy decision for the council whether or not they want to hear them. I think at first glance, it can look like you really want to be involved. You want to hear it from a decision maker standpoint as in like a quasi judicial role. However, there are a lot of downsides to that in that if a concerned citizen wants to talk to you about something that they're seeing on their street and how the city is handling it, you're now essentially in a way the judge on that case. And so if you're talking to a concerned citizen about what's going on in a code enforcement case, that's an ex parte communication and you can't engage in it. If somebody comes to public comment and wants to give public comment on what's going on with a code enforcement property that they're concerned about, you actually have to essentially order them to stop talking during public comment because council is the judge on that matter. And that can be really upsetting to people because they really, citizens want to talk to you as council members. They want to tell you what they love about Snoqualmie and also ways that it can be improved. And that can be maybe cleaning up a code enforcement property. And they wouldn't be able to do that because you are wearing your essentially a judge hat, just like how a judge in a case can't have communication with the public or people about what's going on in an active case.
Well articulated. Thank you. Thank you so much. Do you have a question, Councilmember Johnson? Okay. Well, gentlemen, what do we think? Councilmember Johnson?
Yeah. I know at one time in the past, I was certainly under delusions that councils and mayors had a lot more power than they really do. Turns out that in a lot of these kinds of things, you just look at the code, look at what occurred and what's been requested, et cetera. And if it all matches, there's not really much the council can do. And it seems as though, according to recent case law, there's not much that councils should be involved in doing with regard to those things. It can give the various appearances of not being fair, et cetera, et cetera. And as a result, I think that it might be prudent for us to continue shifting some of the burden of these judicial hearings more toward the hearing examiner, just to keep ourselves out of trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Sounds like there could be some potential liability around this as well if we're not, shifting some of this over to the hearing examiner. No, I agree. With that said, I'm perfectly okay to put this on consent agenda for the next council
I
meeting.
think it's an ordinance. Yeah.
Oh, it's,
So the first reading would be at the next council meeting.
it is an ordinance. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Ordinance amending. So, yep. No consent agenda. So the first reading would be at the next council meeting.
There we go.
Concur.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much, City Attorney Burke.
Thank you very much.
Okay, if there being no further business to come before the committee, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All right, we are now adjourned. It is 6:27.